This is Just Win Bets, baby, on the Sports Bet Winning Network.
Our next guest is a master of the markets and one of the most respected analytical minds in the sports betting world today. Whether he's breaking down the advanced matrix for FTN fantasy or delivering high-stake winners as a lead analyst for BetUS, he has approached the board with a level of discipline that sets him apart from the crowd. Known throughout the industry as Noops, he is a man who trusts the math over the noise and has built a career on finding value where others only see validity. Please welcome to the show, Alex Noops Christenson. How you doing, my friend?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. As you guys already know, and I'm sure a lot of people hopefully know, I'm a huge NBA handicapper, and this is my favorite time of the year. This is the best. As someone who does defend the NBA regular season, I don't know why the NBA is the only league that is allowed to have boring games during the regular season, but We'll skip over that. I do love the playoffs. It's so great to watch these teams get to play each other with rest in between. What a novel idea to have some time to run through practice and go through, strategy and things like that. So it's the best time of the year. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. I mean, let's also be honest. It's 1-1 and for the Boston and the 76ers. You must be happy about that, my friend.
It was quite a surprise. If anybody watches my show on BetUS, my friend Sean T. Green, you might know him from the Sports Gambling Podcast. He also does that show with me. We are both huge Sixers fans. And the way I always describe it is being a fan is probably one of the most negative EV decisions you can make, to be perfectly honest. The Sixers have made me cry. And really just that, to be perfectly honest, it's tough. Both of us basically laughed at the idea of the Sixers beating the Celtics last night. And of course, Sean and I took credit for the win with the reverse jinx. It's great to see them win. As a Sixers fan, again, coming into this series, I didn't really give them much of a chance to win the series. We'll see if Embiid can come back. I mean, that's the life of a Sixers fan. Wait to see if Embiid will ever be healthy. Someone who is got to be setting some sort of record for the most injured body parts of all time. He had Bell's palsy last year. I didn't know that was a real thing. I thought that was just something from a Seinfeld episode. I didn't know that human beings got Bell's palsy. I didn't know adults had appendicitis. It's just unbelievable. So I am excited. Last night was a lot of fun. And as a Sixers fan, I couldn't be happier to see Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. To watch those two guys in a league where having ball handling, athletic guards that can shoot is gold, we have two.
Absolutely. And they totally went off last night. Let me ask you this, my friend. You're known for a very disciplined model-based approach to betting. When you're looking at a slate, whether it's the NBA or even the NHL, how do you balance what the math is telling you versus the eye test or situational news like a late scratch or a team traveling on a back-to-back?
Yeah, and I'll start this by sort of explaining one of the first things I tell bettors. I think when people start betting, they hear the word model and they get really intimidated. They think of some statistician in a lab somewhere with 27 monitors and a computer that, can solve world hunger. That's not really what a model is supposed to be. I assure you, even the very best bettors and guys that I've been lucky enough to work with have models that over time are very predictive. But it's not intended to be a machine that spits out the answers to the test. Really what it is a quantitative stake in the ground. What it does is, without having feelings or anything like that, it takes a look at numbers, organizes them in a way where every day I get up and I get to look at, I actually have a couple models. One takes a look at the closing market numbers. I'll explain that in a second. And one that looks at sort of underlying stats. And I get up, I run that model, I take a look at it. That's my stake in the ground. And it keeps me level and it keeps me even day to day. And I think that's what's really important and why numbers are important to everybody. Again, to be a successful sports bettor at a very high level, I think you have to have some sort of a model, some sort of math, whether it's something you built, something you hired someone to build, whether you're accessing, there's several websites that actually help you build your own models. If you're really betting stuff at that level, that's really what you need to have. And it's not an answer key. It's a stake in the ground. And there are times I go against my model. One of the things I know, and I talk about on the BetUS show all the time, one of the toughest parts about this NBA season is I don't remember ever having so many double-digit spreads, let alone 15, 16, 17, 18. There was a 22, 23-point favorite. I mean, we're talking about college basketball level spreads here. And my model for years has really struggled to see what's called the tails, if you will, the far end outcomes. And it's something where this year I have gone against my model a little bit. If I make it 13 and the spread's 15, I bet some of those 15s. It's something I want to work on during the offseason, trying to improve that. But again, I think math for me and numbers is just a dispassionate way to create an anchor, a base point every day from which to go off of. And it helps me understand also, what the market is thinking. I think one of the most important things about betting is if you don't know why your number is different than the current line, you don't have an edge. You really don't. You have to understand specifically what makes it different. Are you evaluating a rest spot differently? Have you done a better job valuing a certain player? I talk about all the time in the NBA. The Orlando Magic are playing tonight. People know Franz Wagner's name. They know Paolo Banchero's name. The most important player on the Orlando Magic is Jalen Suggs. When Jalen Suggs plays for that team, they are markedly better. And I continue to find value in the market underrating him being in and out and things like that. So a little wordy there, but at the end of the day, math helps keep you consistent. Math helps keep you even. I think that watching games and having an eye for sports is still important, but without the math to keep you based, it gets to be really tough. Again, brains just aren't better than computers. They're just not.
Yeah, Shane and I have some math background. I'll leave it at that. So we definitely know what you're putting down. We're definitely picking that up.
Totally agree with you there, though. On the math background, you need that, especially when you're first starting out. But they're trying to look at the spreads when they first come out and stuff like that. It's totally necessary.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this one, my friend. You contribute, of course, to both FTN and BetUS, as you mentioned earlier, covering several sports, kind of very similar to what we do. In your experience, which market currently offers the most, I guess, alpha edge for a bettor? Is it still easier, to beat the prayer prop market compared to a full game size, or is the gap closing as sports books get a little bit sharper?
I think the gap is closing, and not really because books are getting sharper. They're just offering less things. You're seeing a lot of books move away from offering unders. Books haven't offered alt unders in a long time. It's almost impossible to find alt unders. FanDuel has them from time to time. But I think at the end of the day, the best way to answer that question is look at what the limit is for each bet. And the smaller the limit, the easier it is, because the lower the limit on bets, that means the books have spent the least amount of time there. They want the least amount of exposure there. So if you're getting into betting, start small. Pick some player props, and not all player props. Again, if you want to get into basketball, start looking at points. Look at points for a couple teams, and then maybe stretch it out to every team and things like that. But again, if you're starting small, really do it. Start small. Don't jump into betting by being like, I'm going to beat NFL spreads. I'm going to beat NBA totals. I'm going to get in here and crush college football spreads every weekend. It's really difficult, but I still think that the easiest markets to beat are the ones further down the board. And as you guys know, the reason for that is books spend less time looking at them, less time thinking about them. And again, you can't bet as much, but if you're getting started, it's a good way to build your bankroll and learn about sports betting and really get a nice education practically before you try to tackle some of these bigger markets where, there are people betting hundreds of thousands of dollars, on NBA spreads and things like that, where props, you're lucky to get down a couple $100 at this point.
I'm happy you brought up unders there, because I always tell people I feel like people are scared to bet unders or they don't want to because it's not fun, right? So, but you can find some really good value, especially back in the day when you said with the player unders, right? So I totally agree with you there too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're with our good friend Alex Noops Christenson, and you can follow him on X as _Noops. That's NOOPS on X. Let me ask you this question, my friend, and just kind of piggybacking what you were just saying. We've seen a massive shift in how betting information is consumed, right? From writing columns to live streaming and AI-driven tools. As someone who has been in the space as like yourself for a while, what do you think is the biggest mistake that new bettors make when they try to follow, quote, the expert analysis?
I think it's hard, number one, to figure out who the experts are. I think one of the biggest problems with doing sports betting content is, and I'm sure you guys know this, and anyone that's done it for a long time knows, losers hate listening to winners. And it's just a really depressing fact where people who have struggled betting, people who have tried to do it themselves, that are watching these shows, trying to get easy winners, as much as they can learn a lot from some of these guys who are very smart and talk at a very high level, they struggle to engage with that because I think, and I've met some of these people and talked to them, I think it makes them feel stupid. I think it makes them feel like they're incapable of doing this. I think at the end of the day, if you're watching someone, number one, don't get involved with anybody that doesn't have their record kept. You preferably want that on a third-party app, something like BetStamp, something like the Action Network. BetSperts has a good app as well. Someone with a record and someone who is betting consistently. If you're watching someone who's like, I got a 10 unit and a 20 unit and a 30 unit, a 50 unit, a super mega nuclear max, that person's not, it's just wrong. It really is. And so really try to curate who you're following and make sure you follow them for a little while before you bet. I will say as myself, someone before I did this seriously, there were people, I would go through their Twitter and be like, oh man, this guy looks great. And like day one, I'm just hammering everything they're putting out only to learn that that's not the deal. So take your time. This happens very slowly. No one makes money betting quickly. Now, some people get lucky and you see those. You see those commercials with the SGPs and the lottery parlays and things like that. They're showing you that because that's what they want you to do, folks. It's another general rule. If a sports book is suggesting it to you, it's probably a bad idea, folks. So take your time, start slow, really try to vet people and figure out not only who is smart, but why they're smart, and really just try to, wrap your head around that first before you just start blindly assuming that even I or you guys are super smart bettors. Watch us for a while, get a feel for what we know.
Right.
And you bring up third-party apps. I got to throw it out there now. We're affiliated with Pickett, so join Pickett if you want to track your bets.
Pickett's great. That's another one I forgot. Yes,
use our promo
Pickett's
code
excellent.
JWBZ.
Pickett is one of the best
You get a
ones.
discount there, and Pickett. We post our Pickett things all the time to keep us in check too. So I totally agree with you there because they're especially on X or Twitter, whatever. I mean, you see so many sports betting guys out there, and it's just like you said, those mega max guys that are throwing out these plus 50,000 parlays, and they might hit one or two like every once in a while, maybe not that big, but. For the most part, it's usually a bad bet.
13-1 in the last 14 picks, that kind of stuff. When you start seeing things like that, and then even today, I saw someone notice there was. Now that we have AI, we have all these good tools. There are people who are posting fake bet slips, folks. When you look at someone's bet slip, start to check stuff. Someone posted a home run parlay today that they made up because they used the wrong Yankees logo. FanDuel for the Yankees logo does the NYY. And whoever made the bet slip used like the red, white, and blue. I think it's a baseball bat, whatever it is. But again, you got to vet these people. And in general, I would say the more emojis they use, the less realistic it is that they are good handicappers.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. Let me ask you this question, my friend, just to kind of piggyback on what you just stated. Betting professionally or at a high level is a mental marathon. As you mentioned, it's not, as I always tell folks, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So you've spoken before about the importance of the process over the results. Can you walk us through a time where you went through a significant kind of down swing? And we've done that. I've done that, of course. And I know Shano, I don't want to speak for him, but he's done that. And what specific adjustments mentally and analytically you made to stay on the course?
Yeah, I actually sort of misspoke a little bit earlier. I said the first thing I tell people is models. The first thing I actually tell people is get a log. Again, preferably third party, something like that. But every bet you make, serious bets, fun bets, stupid bets, write them all down and put, when you made it, what the sport was, all that stuff. Because having a log does a couple things. It allows you to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are, but it also keeps you grounded and inspires you, because anyone that's done this long enough knows if you win 12, 13 bets in a row, unfortunately, you're going to lose 8, 9, 10, 11 in a row at some point later. Now, on the other hand, if you lose 10 in a row, you know that you still have the capability to get that money back. And specifically, one of the times I really struggled was when I initially started doing this, I was a big tennis bettor. I've become a little bit less of a tennis bettor lately, but I started as a tennis bettor, had a really great first year and a half, consistently earning pretty much every week. And someone asked me to start writing daily tennis articles for them. And what I learned from that process was I'm a very enticing writer. I am absolutely capable of talking myself into doing stuff. And as I was writing these articles, I would come in, with the bets that I had made. And as I was writing stuff, I started adding more bets. And I went to look at my log. And basically from the day I started writing those articles to the day I stopped, it was just a downward tank. And Now that situation's a little bit unique, but again, I changed something about what I was doing. And because I was tracking my results, I was able to tell in time before it was really a disaster what I was doing. And what the lesson I learned from that was, as you're writing, as you're creating content for bets, don't add on while you're doing it. Stick to what you plan to write about. Stick to what you plan to talk about. That's a kind of a different example. I think one maybe that might be a little easier for people to grab onto. The Brooklyn Nets. When the Brooklyn Nets signed Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, I lost an absurd amount of money betting unders in those games. I really did. I put together my model, my numbers every day, spit out under, watching the games, looking at the pace. Things looked really, really slow, but the efficiency had reached a level that I couldn't possibly understand. And after about a month and a half of really getting my teeth kicked in, I went back. It was an opportunity for me to learn a little bit more about some of the underlying factors or things like that. That's actually when I discovered a company called Shot Quality. If you're into basketball, Shot Quality does a great job of basically looking at every shot, college and NBA, where it's taken, what the projected efficiency of that is, stuff that's hard to find in box score stats and things like that. And again, it was really tough. I assure you that I spent a lot of money learning that lesson, but long term, what it taught me was I needed an extra level of data. At that point, I wasn't building in what I'm not sure it exists for the NBA. Some people have this like expected field goal percentage, I think would be call it. If you're familiar with soccer, they have expected goals. I needed more data around that. Instead of looking at like this team shot 35%, this team shot 45%. Well, it's like they shot 45, but long-term we'd expect it to be 48 or something like that. And it was a great sort of learning moment where, again, you got to be able to adapt. It's one of those things where you want to stick to your process long term, but if things consistently are going poorly, which again is why a log is so important, because I looked at that and it was like a month of NBA. I was like, what's going on here? What's the problem? And I looked at it, I was like, oh, Nets totals. Okay. You're getting kicked in the absolute balls every day betting these Nets unders. What do I have to do? How do I adapt? It's one of the best parts about betting. As you guys know, it's this constantly changing problem. I'm trying to remember what James Bond movie it was where they're trying to hack this guy's code, and Q basically describes it as Skyfall. It's in Skyfall.
It was Skyfall. Yeah.
Yeah. Q is describing it as like a Rubik's Cube that's fighting back. That's what betting is. It's this Rubik's Cube that is constantly changing and evolving and has information you don't, and it is fighting against you. So again, you have to be at the same time willing to stick to long term, but you got to be flexible, and you have to be willing to understand that it's kind of just like in life. The moment you think you figured it out, that's the moment your goose is really cooked.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're with our good friend, Alex Noops Christenson. You can follow him on X. That's _Noops, Noops. Make sure you give him a follow. We'll leave you with this last question, my friend. You talk about the positive, EV, right? Betting in the bankroll management. So what is usually your weekly process? I mean, you talk about with NBA stuff like, but what is like the emphasis on the importance of a routine that you have in order to become a successful betting, not only an analyst, but in your betting career?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I've been, I call myself a semi-professional bettor. At this point, about 65% of my income comes from winning bets. The rest of it comes from doing some content. I also do some contract work for independent pharmacies, which I'll take a quick second to say, go to your local independent pharmacy, folks. Any pharmacy that's not CVS, Rite Aid, or Walgreens is run by some poor schmuck that went to school to be a chemist and a healthcare worker and is now getting crushed by insurance companies every day while they run a 7-Eleven. Go help your local pharmacies. Those are local entrepreneurs doing great stuff. So I do some of that, but throughout my betting career, again, about 10, 11 years we're at this point, every day has changed. It evolves over time, but I think to your question, consistency is key. There are a few things I've always done. Every day starts with results. Every single day, I open up my log. I go through each of my bets, what won, what lost, where did it win, where did it lose. Let me just, take stock of how much money I have here, how much money I have there. I look at some long-term trends. Again, after that kind of Nets total disaster, I started looking at how's my ROI on this team, how's my ROI on that team, et cetera, and things like that. And then, so again, that first step, recap. Go through it, figure out kind of what happened the day before, see what lessons you can learn, and then try to update all my numbers. Go through, let me update my NBA model. Let me update my tennis model during football season. I have a touchdown model that I use. Then I actually take a break. Once I'm done modeling all that stuff, I actually try to do something physical, go for a walk, work out, do some stuff like that. Then I come back, and now it's time to try to attack. And again, I'd like to tell you every day goes exactly like this, but as you guys know, start times change, things are different. So it's a constantly evolving process. But at the end of the day, you got to have some stakes in the ground, and those stakes have to be my log. What did I do yesterday? What did I win? What did I lose? What can I learn from that? Let me update all my numbers. Let me make sure all my tools are ready to go and set for the day. And then just take a moment to see your mindset. I would love to tell you that I bet every single day. There are some days I get up and I just don't have it. Whether I didn't sleep right, whether there's some other personal stuff going on, whether I'm just not feeling it that day. There are some days where it's like, you know what? I'm just going to leave all this here. I'll get back to it tomorrow because it's a grind. It is. It's a lot of work every single day. It's a lot of screen time, right? It's a lot of that. And once it starts to get to you, then it really gets to you. I think a good example, one of the guys I work with on BetUS, one of my absolute favorite guys, he's a great handicapper, works for Wager Talk, a guy named Ski Profit. And Ski, it was his first season joining us on BetUS, and it was one of his first times doing a big public show. And Ski is more of a high volume bettor. He is someone who, when he finds angles, he attacks them a lot. But for the sake of the show, Ski explained that he was trying to be a little more professional. Let me try to cut down my volume. Yeah. And at a certain point, we got about a month in, he was having kind of a tough start to the season. And he basically was sort of talking to me one day. He's like, it's driving me nuts because like I make 12, 13 bets a day. I'm only sharing 3 or 4 on the show. I'm crushing it personally, but on the show, it's going like really badly. And it's starting to get to me. And I'm like, dude, here's what I know. I know everyone says you should bet less stuff, but what I know is whatever you just told me sounds like a crazy person. So whatever you're doing is driving you nuts. You need to find a way to get comfortable. So again, some people are volume shooters. Some people are not. I know guys that are professional bettors who've made millions of dollars making like 12 bets a year. Some people are making hundreds, thousands of bets every single week, things like that. So again, routine's important, but at the end of the day, get your stakes in the ground, get your log, get your numbers and your tools, and really be aware of how you're feeling that day. Where is your head? How's it going? You know, if you're not feeling good, you're not going to bet good.
Right. No, I completely agree. Well, Alex, we truly appreciate you coming on, taking time out of your schedule to join us tonight. And hopefully we can have you back on in the near future, my friend.
That. Yeah, I would love to join you guys. It was a great conversation. We could talk some more basketball next time. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about you guys. I like guys in the DC area.
Yeah,
guys, I'm a Philly guy, and we have the thing where we live on the East Coast, but we're not New York because like everyone wants to be New York City.
Right.
New York's not that great, man. It's
no.
Way overrated.
Before we let you go, any bets you like for tomorrow? Any games?
Yeah. Tomorrow, again, it's another day in the NBA. It's a little bit tough. Let me pull up some numbers here that are coming out. So we've got all the games that basically the other night we had the Hawks upset the Knicks, the Raptors continue to get blown out by the Cavaliers. And then we've got Nuggets, Timberwolves. I like the Nuggets first quarter. They've been one of the best first quarter teams all year. That number isn't out yet. My guess is Denver's -2.5 full game. We're probably looking at -0.5 point, -1 in that first quarter. First quarters to me are some of my favorite bets because they're derivatives. And it's not like books are taking the full game line and just dividing by 4, but I don't see the kind of dynamic adjustments for things like lineups and stuff like that. And the best part about Denver in the first quarter, Nikola Jokic plays 11 to 12 minutes in the first quarter, pretty much every game. And I continue to fail to see books build that in against the spread for a couple seasons now. They've been one of the best first quarter teams. So really Denver first quarter -1 or less looks like a really nice bet. Again, the Hawks are small favorites at home. I was really hoping they'd be small underdogs. I love that spot for Atlanta. I really think the adjustments we saw from them in game 2 were solid. But Cleveland -2.5. That also looks like a pretty good number to me. I would make that closer to 4. I think this Raptors team is just way, way outmanned. And it was nice they figured out they needed to bench Poeltl last game, but I just don't think that's enough. So let's go with Denver first quarter, anything -1 or better, and Cleveland against Toronto full game there, anything -3 or better should be pretty solid.
I like it.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, Alex, again, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us. When we return, of course, make sure that you follow him on X, and that is, of course, at _Noops, NOOPS on X. Give this young man a follow, and good to see you, my friend, and we will talk very, very soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Best of luck until we speak again.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. When we return, we have, of course, Louis G, who's going to be joining us in studio next on Just Win Bets, baby.